I have autism and I really like stroking soft and fluffy things like dressing gowns, and I like the look of them as well. This is a sensory thing, and I actually became really interested in microscopic hairs on gecko lizards. I then became really interested in hairy plants and hairy invertebrates. And I made art and fictional stories about the hairs on geckos, and then about hairy plants and hairy invertebrates. Some plants can have whitish hair, like protuberances. I made a plant, but used white fairy pipe cleaners to represent the white hair like protuberances. Thanks. Parts of tree ferns can look brown and fairy in real life, so I made parts of tree ferns out of fairy pipe cleaners. Thanks. Sundew plants can be carnivorous and have hairs that they modified to use to catch bugs, and the modified hairs are the tentacle-like parts. Real forked sundew plants can fork, and I made a forked sundew out of pipe cleaners with the hairy bits of the pipe cleaners meant to be the tentacle-like parts. In real life, woolly bear caterpillars can look fairy. I therefore made the woolly bear caterpillars out of fairy pipe cleaners. I added fake leaves and a rock to the enclosure. The only glue I used was to stick the paper leaves to one of the plants. Real moss can have fruiting bodies. These fruiting bodies on a rock can look like hair and can look orangey and yellowy. I made the fruiting bodies out of intertwined orange and yellow pipe cleaners on the rock. Real moss can also look fairy without the fruiting bodies. I made moss out of intertwined green pipe cleaners. Substrates can be the layer on the enclosure floors and can be made of things like soil. Substrates can be described as fluffy in real life, so I made a piece of substrate out of fluffy, intertwined brown pipe cleaners. In real life, morning glory clouds can be in lines. Clouds can also be described as fluffy, so I sellotaped white fluffy pipe cleaners to the lid for morning glory clouds. Non-fiction. Octopuses, squids, extinct ammonites, and living nautiluses are animals called cephalopods. In real life, there is a nautilus with a golden shell, and the shell is apparently hairy. Fiction. Although extinct, ammonites were diverse enough and around long enough that maybe one of them also had a hairy shell. I made a hairy ammonite shell out of a fairy pipe cleaner that I curled up like an ammonite shell. In real life, comets can look hairy, and comets have been called hairy stars. So I made a comet out of hairy pipe cleaners. I added the comet and stars to the upper background, which is meant to be the sky. The brownish lower background is meant to be rock, and real ammonite fossils can be found in rocks, so I added the ammonite to the rock background. Non-fiction. The legs of fairy legs moths can appear fairy in real life. I drew a fairy legs moth and used parts of a pipe cleaner for legs. In a picture of real fairy legs moths, the ends of the legs appear wider. Because of this, I used small scissors to trim the pipe cleaner parts so that the end of the legs looked wider, like in the picture. I added the fairy legs moth to the lid of the enclosure. I used glue and sellotape just to stick the ammonite comet and moth to the enclosure and to paper. Factories can have clouds of smoke coming out of chimneys. I made a factory background in one direction. Smoke clouds may look a bit fluffy, so I made the smoke clouds out of fluffy pipe cleaners. In real life, puffball mushrooms can emit a cloud of spores. I don't know if you can call the clouds fluffy, so I made the spore cloud out of fluffy pipe cleaners. I drew the rest of the mushroom. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Warning, spider-like. Real footed ferns can have parts that look like fairy legs, which are called rhizomes. I did a drawing of a footed fern and added real fairy pipe cleaners for the real fairy looking rhizomes. So real footed ferns can get called rabbit's foot ferns. Lots of individual legs on millipedes can look like lots of individual hairs. I therefore made a bumblebee millipede, which is a real animal, and I used a red hairy pipe cleaner for its hair-like legs. In the past. Hairy green pipe cleaner aliens invaded my room. They had black eyes made with pipe cleaners. They invaded the pipe cleaner terrariums. The carnivorous forked sundew plant made out of red pipe cleaners tried to eat an alien. The alien is upside down and dark green. They invaded the millipede terrarium. The aliens invaded my mostly geology collection. One of my pet rocks was there when an alien invaded near a fern house plant. An alien invaded my bed, which had a rock person in it. The rock person said, "Can you move over a bit, please?" Thanks. Non-fiction. Plants can release white hairy bits like in dandelions. I think I've seen the white hairy parts cover and carpet the ground in real life. Like these parts, white hairy parts of pipe cleaners covered the terrariums. With the terrariums being pipe cleaner themed, I cut the hairs off white pipe cleaners for this. Pipe cleaner millipede terrarium. My window was left open for an extended period of time, and my bed was covered in the white hairy plant parts. I used a white fluffy blanket for these parts on the bed. The hairy bits may be soft, but the rock person said they preferred the soft mineral talc. The rock person had parts of pipe cleaners on their face. In real life, dust on this wire made the wire look grey and hairy. I coloured in black hairy pipe cleaners with white chalk. The pipe cleaners therefore looked grey and hairy, like the dust on the wire. The pipe cleaner wire is for a heat pad for the enclosure, and the wire ends in a plug. Woolly bear caterpillars, shown here, can make brown hairy cocoons in real life. I made a brown hairy cocoon out of brown hairy pipe cleaners. I put the pipe cleaner woolly bear caterpillar inside. I couldn't find enough brown pipe cleaners, but now you can see the caterpillar inside. The caterpillars need something to drink, so an idea I had was to give them beer. The foam on beer can be fluffy like pipe cleaners, so I made beer glasses and used pipe cleaners for the beer foam. Disclaimer: don't give animals alcohol. In real life, mosses can look green and fluffy, yellowish orange and hairy, white and hairy, and red and hairy. In the enclosure there's red and white, hairy pipe cleaner moss, yellowish orange hairy moss, and green fluffy pipe cleaner moss. Moss can be sensitive to air pollution, and so as you move further and further away from the factory on the left wall, there is more pipe cleaner moss. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed.